Hi guys, it's Jason here from Headfirst. Today we're looking at this 1974 50 watt JMP. It's the 1987 model circuit. This is one of the lower voltage ones, right, of this era. It's got about 365 volts on the plates. Some people love these, others not so much, right? I'm a fan. This amp sounds pretty cool, right? And it is in superb condition, mint condition actually. It has come in just for a rudimentary kind of service and a check over, right? There's no mods on this amp, but because it's such a fantastic specimen, I wanted to capture it on video and keep it in the log. So if we have a look at this thing, you can see the front is completely unmolested and unmodded. Dead mint, right? The rear of the amp, it only has a master volume that's been added, and that master volume has been put into one of the speaker jacks, right? So no drilling, it's very non-invasive. This master was already in the amp when I got it, and it is a pre-phase inverter master, which is an interesting choice on a Plexi, but in this amp works pretty well. We're going to take this to the bench and I will show you what this amp's looking like, and we're going to talk a little bit about crossover distortion, because this amp, when I received it, was very coldly biased. Alright, let's have a look at this 74 50 watter. Pretty clean, isn't it? Alright, let you just have a look at this for a second, but the board, this is all pretty mint, right? Looks like that bypass cap there, 330 microfarad, that looks like it's been replaced at some point, but every resistor and cap all the way through here, dead stock, complete factory, which is awesome. Bias caps have been replaced, that's nice to see. The amp's also been recapped, all the filter caps, right? So I'll show you down that end of the amp in a second. Notable things: bright cap is intact, but not connected. Okay, so it's nice to see this. I mean, you guys know that I prefer bright caps in on these old circuits. It's part of that, you know, the kerrang of what makes a Marshall. But I do understand why people do disconnect them. It's nice to see that whoever did this left the cap there, because too many times these come in and these old caps have been, you know, thrown away, misplaced, whatever. Master volume has been added. Now this is not a post-phase inverter master. I've seen this on a couple of these Plexis, or Plexi style circuits, where a master volume has been inserted. Normally what you see is, this is the treble pot here, and off the wiper, which is the middle lug, you'd normally be connecting directly to the input of the phase inverter, which is this brown wire here, right here at this cap here. This is the entry point into the phase inverter, all right, and this side here is where the negative feedback comes in. So kind of, you can think of the phase inverter set up here, that you've got entry here and then negative feedback on this side. Now, so this brown wire here would normally just come straight off the treble wiper, and so what someone's done here is inserted just a simple pot here. It's probably a 1 meg, I haven't measured it yet, but it'll be a 1 meg audio taper, where you're coming off the treble wiper into the input of this pot. Off the wiper of this pot, it goes back across this shielded coax here. It's got 2 cores. This is like a microphone, you know, cable. It's got a red and a white inner core, and we can see the white wire here connects to the brown, right? So we've kind of basically put that pot in between. This brown wire here would have been straight on the wiper, put the pot in between. So it's nicely done. It's fine. Post-phase inverters are great if you want to, you know, retain the overdrive characteristics that you get from the phase inverter. This style setup here is, probably preferable for someone who obviously wants to control the volume, but probably prefers a cleaner sounding Marshall, because this is attenuating so much signal when it's in use. We won't be getting much overdrive coming in from the phase inverter. It's got a 0.68 microfarad presence cap. I prefer the 0.1s in the plexi circuit, but this is all completely stock, right? So that'd be the way this is wired. It'll be a 25k linear pot, and we've got a 4k7 to ground, right, with a 0.68. So I'm not going to touch any of that because that's all original. Personally, I prefer 5k linear with 0.1, but it's a taste thing, right? Some people prefer it this way. That's cool. We have lost a speaker jack because of the master volume that's been put there, but that's understandable because no one wants to drill holes in 1974 JMPs, I'm sure. So I've been through and measured all of the resistors actually initially. Everything on this board is within spec. All really great. This one here, which is the plate resistor for V2A, always attached to the socket here in these Marshalls like this basically for convenience. They get subjected to a lot of heat, right? They're sitting right on top of this tube socket rather than being back on the PCB here. So I've seen this before, and this one's no different. This is measuring way out of spec. Let me demonstrate that for you with my meter here. Should be a 100k resistor, right? As we know. So I'll measure it here and you'll see. 149. Let's call it 150. That's drifted and needs to be replaced. So we'll do that. Everything else checks out pretty good, right? All right, so also really pleased to see this. Right, so what we have here is the original speaker jack that was removed to put this master volume in, and one of the this is external plug here. The main selector here is hardwired, and I've checked it. It's hardwired at 240, which is great. I've seen enough of these amps to know always to check that, because I've had I've had some in here that have been wired at 220, which if you're in Australia and you've got 240 on the mains, it's not awesome. The impedance selector is still intact, right? So the plug for the impedance selector on the back here is still in place, so that's cool. But it's nice to see this, whoever worked on the amp, nice to see these original parts safely kind of secured and in place inside the amp. The amp's been recapped, right? So we've got new FNTs all the way through the amp, which in a 50 watt, there's 3 of them, right? One here, and another one at the preamp end of the board underneath it. Right, we can see here, as I was mentioning, right, the main selector plug is missing, but the impedance is here. Here's the master volume that's been inserted. Still got the original power input here. What we're going to do is, we've got a bias probe here, right? We're going to check the bias on this amp. So let me just power this thing up and we'll see what we got. Okay, we've got 240 coming in on the amp. We're in standby, so let me bring it out of standby and let's see what we've got here. Okay, the first thing you'll probably notice 2 things. Number 1, look at the low plate voltage. All the ones that I've seen in here have been 370, but look at this bias. I think when we get the bias correct, obviously this voltage here will drop a bit, probably down to 360, but this is really, really coldly biased, massively so. So we're going to adjust that. Obviously, I'm surprised that it's running this low. It's not difficult to bias an amp. And there does, on just visual inspection, there does appear to be an adjustment left or available in the bias pot. So just before I adjust the bias on this thing, with the cold bias that we have, I just thought I'd just quickly rig this up. Let's do a test to see if we can see any crossover distortion. So I'm running a 1 kilohertz sine wave into the front end of the amp. I've got hardly any gain dialed in, right? So I'm trying to keep the front end very clean. I'm using the master volume on the rear just to bring this up. And I'm got the scope at their speaker output. It's running into a 16 ohm resistive load. And as I bring it up, you start to see right there, we're getting, see the kink in the wave here? I'll bring this down. We've got a better shape on the wave there at a kind of lower output volume. That looks, pretty symmetrical and nice there. But as I bring this up, make the amp work harder, even before the top, like if I crank it right up, how about there? Yeah, that's pretty showing it quite clearly there. The amp's still got headroom, it's not actually clipping. But we are getting a bit of a kink here, some shape on the sine wave that with an amp that's biased correctly, you don't get. So I'm going to rebias it, and then we will do this check again. All right, I've moved the bias up. Still just about 60% plate dissipation right now. And so let me bring this back up again. I haven't changed anything else, right? The level of the input signal is identical. And I'll bring this master all the way up again. Before, our peak-to-peak voltage here was 68, 67, 68. So we're getting a little bit more output. I'll just bring this back again to the same. We've definitely lost the kink in the wave here, right? So the crossover distortion at this point in the audio signal, and the crossover being, the crossover between, it's an AB push-pull amplifier. That's looking much cleaner.